Prajapati. Prajapati means progenitors of mankind. And then the universe fills up. And then the first, and at the end of Brahma's day, is his night. And the night of Brahma is of equal duration as the day of Brahma. And that's a long time. Just set it down. Don't just stand there. One day of Brahma is equal to 1,000 cycles of the 4 yugas. One cycle is 4,320,000 times 1,000 is one day. And then his night is of equal duration, so you multiply that by 2, 4,320,000,000 years times 2. That's one day of Brahma and his night. So once, for around 150 of our earthly years, 125 of our earthly years, Krishna appears. And it's on schedule. He's not like he doesn't have a timer hooked up to him or something, but he appears on schedule. It's around midday when Brahma's day when Krishna appears on earth. The 28th yuga cycle of the 7th Manu. It's around 11:30, almost noon, Brahma's day. And when he comes to pay his respects to Krishna. Because Brahma received from Krishna the knowledge of how to build the universe. In fact, he received knowledge of all the Vedas. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikaviye Muyanti Yat Surayaha. He received all from within his heart. He received all knowledge. And then he manifested the knowledge. He manifested the 4 Vedas. So he is highly intelligent, highly capable, very powerful enough and intelligent enough to build the universe. That's pretty powerful. But all that power he knows is derived from someone. He's an instrument of someone, and that someone is Lord Vishnu, or ultimately is Krishna. So he comes to pay his respects by coming to earth when Krishna appears. And he happened to come at a time when Krishna was performing his childhood pastimes in Vrindavan, when Krishna was just 4 years old. So what a 4-year-old, he was with his friends. And 4-year-old boys, what do? They play. They had an external, apparent set of activities. They were herding calves. Because Krishna appeared in the family of the son of the king of the cowherds. Nanda Maharaj was the king of the cowherds. And he was Nandana, the son of Nanda. Brajendra Nandana. Braja is the place, Indra is the king, and Nandana, Brajendra Nandana. And he loved the calves. The calves loved him, and they just went out with every day, taking care of the calves. But really their program was playing and 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 all kinds of little boy activities that's described just before this prayer section. And while they were playing, Kamsa had sent one of his demons, one of his powerful associates, to kill Krishna, who had mystic powers and One of those mystic powers was, it's commonly called shape-changing power. He assumed the form of a giant serpent. And as the boys were playing and playing and playing and playing, they came across this giant serpent, and they wondered, what's this thing? We've never seen this thing here before. We come here every day. And it looks like a cave. Maybe it's just a play place that Krishna created for us to play with. And in the playful mood, they came closer and closer. It wasn't a play place at all. It was a giant serpent. They smelled the fishy smell coming from his breath, and some got scared and started to run. And other boys said, no, 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 no. Even if that's what it is, Krishna will always protect us. He's always protect us. Let's go. Let's explore inside. So off they went. And the calves followed right behind the cowherd boys, because that's what they did. And Krishna observed all this. And as they entered the mouth of Aghasura, Krishna was stunned. It was an ecstatic arrangement of Yogamaya. He felt a transcendental feeling of affection for the cowherd boys. A very big spike of feeling. And then in the next moment, he knew exactly what to do. He entered into the mouth of Aghasura, became really, really, really big. Although he was a giant boa constrictor, Krishna got bigger than he could stretch himself, and Aghasura suffocated. And his soul left his body, the top of his head, hovered in the air until Krishna and the cowherd boys came out of the Aghasura's mouth, and the soul merged into Krishna's body. He gave him liberation. And then the boys said, wow, that was really good. Let's go have lunch. It was around 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, around 11:30, 12:30, 12 o'clock. So they went to have lunch. Brahma had witnessed all of that. And he was amazed. Who is this little boy? I mean, he knew, but then Yogamaya covered him to not exactly know. And he saw the liberation, he saw the annihilation of this powerful demon, and now he's just playing like a little boy having lunch. So he had a bad idea. I mean, an offensive idea. He decided he would test his mystic powers, because he had mystic powers, against Krishna's mystic powers to see what Krishna would do. So he, with his mystic powers, he kidnapped all the cowherd boys and all the calves, put them in a cave, came back to see what Krishna would do. What did Krishna do? He manifested himself in exact likeness of all the cowherd boys and calves. Exactly. And then, for each cowherd boy and each calf, he manifested forms of Narayan. And each of the Narayan were surrounded by the unlimited potencies of Narayan. He gives the names of them, and they were all personified, and they were worshipping Narayana. It was a big commotion. The personified Vedas worshipping each of the forms of Narayan. And then, poof, they all disappeared. Just like that. And all was left was just Krishna looking at Brahma, what you see here, standing underneath a tree, his right arm leaning on the tree, his left hand still holding some yogurt and fruit because he hadn't finished his lunch yet, with unblinking eyes looking at Brahma. Brahma fainted, having seen what he saw. He understood everything of what he saw. He then offered prayers. We heard the first 8 of those prayers. The first one is just like a photograph or a snapshot or a little cameo picture of what he saw, the features. of Krishna, his smile, his unblinking eyes. And then Brahma started to describe as for all of what his capacity for intelligence was, he couldn't understand. He couldn't understand what he had seen. He couldn't understand Krishna, that he knew it was the original form because Krishna showed he was the origin of everything. And he couldn't understand the happiness that Krishna was feeling. And then another very important verse is a verse that's declaring to understand that which is only understood by disclosure or by revelation. The process of empirics or intellectual power is not going to work. So he instructs that should be given up. And instead, the process of devotional service, namanta eva, by offering namaha, by offering obeisances to the Supreme Lord, all the while hearing from Krishna or from his pure devotees the glories and the aspects of Krishna, qualities of Krishna, pastimes of Krishna, hearing those things that nourish the bhakti that's within. And by living one's life that way, Brahma says in his third prayer, the unknowable can be known, at least to the degree that the unknowable discloses himself. And not only he can be known, but he can be conquered. Because one of the names of Krishna is Ajita. Ajita means he can't be conquered. But the verse says, he who can't be conquered becomes conquered. By love of his devotees, Krishna submits himself to the love of his devotees. Then there's several other verses where he describes the insufficient capacity of knowledge. Uses this really extreme metaphor. Supposing some knowledgeable person could count all the atoms in the universe, or suppose they could count all the snowflakes, or supposing they could count all the drops of water that fall from the sky. If there is somebody that can do that, they still can't calculate the total power, potency of Krishna. And certainly he can't. He's already stated that the unknowable is not knowable by empiric research, is the point. And how is it knowable? It's knowable through devotion. Then some other yogis that become very skilled in mind control and withdrawing their senses from sense objects, meditate on the Lord within their heart, and they also engage in hearing his glories. They may also achieve the spiritual world. Then there are those that can't do either of those, and at best, Brahma describes, they may, very difficult, but they may achieve realization of his impersonal feature, but they can't understand his form and his qualities and his pastimes. They have no access to that. Then he concludes what we discussed yesterday, verse 8 of the first 8. And it's a very important verse. He describes what happens when you do something like what he did. You make an offense. Now, we're not exactly offense mistakes. And when we make mistakes, we're responsible for our mistakes. So he's accepting responsibility in his verse. He does not the language he uses, but when there's some misfortune that comes, it happens. Misfortune comes. How to respond? He gives a nice teaching. You accept it. It's coming because of some misdeed. Here comes the misfortune. That's the fruit of the misdeed. And when the misfortune comes, because he's expecting he's going to get punished or something. There's going to be some reaction for his misdeed. I accept it. He didn't plead like, give me a light sentence, or it really wasn't like that, or let me off light. He's not trying to counteract. But he instead of, when some misfortune comes, it's really, really easy. It's just kind of like second nature. You absorb yourself in what the situation is, and you try to improve the situation or neutralize the negativity of the situation and get all caught up in the emotion of the negative situation. It's standard. We discussed this yesterday at length. Life throws rocks at you and it hurts. Now what are you going to do? The advice, there's lots of things not to do, or lots of things that people do, but the advice of Brahma is acknowledge this is coming as a result of something in the past, maybe not known, that's okay, something of the past, some misdeed, and here comes some misfortune my way. Let me accept it. But let my mind not budge an inch from this position of bhakti, from the position of shelter at your lotus feet. The phrase that he uses is heart, rit, vak, words, and mana. Simply dedicated to hearing the pastimes, glories, qualities of Krishna. One who does like that, they're going back to Godhead. The phrase is, they inherit the property of their father, as is the law in India. When a father dies, the eldest son receives the property of the father. He doesn't have to create a will. It's just the law. So just live, survive, live your life in devotion till the very conclusion of your life, in devotion to the Supreme, and you inherit the property of the Supreme. What's the property of the Supreme? His abode, where he lives. You go back to Godhead. Because over here, there's good fortune, there's ill fortune. It's duality, the nature of the place. First teaching that Krishna gives in Bhagavad Gita. Matra sparshas kaunteya sitoshna sukha dukkha da sukha dukkha. Happiness, distress. It's the nature of the place. Sometimes honor, sometimes dishonor. Sometimes it's hot and sometimes it's hotter, at least here in Phoenix. I shared with somebody that's in India, 95 degrees at 5:30 p.m. They said here in India it was 100 degrees, here in Vrindavan. I hope they have some AC. So sometimes and sometimes. It's the nature of the world. It's sometimes it's light, sometimes it's dark, sometimes and sometimes. So when you're in the field of duality, you have to have some shelter and transcendence. One who takes shelter in that fixed position, shelter of serving the Supreme Person, you're on your way back to Godhead. That's the message. And that was verse 8. And now we're going to cover 4 verses. 9, 10, 11, 12. There's another painting of the same situation. There's Brahma, he's kneeling before Krishna. And these 4 prayers are prayers of apology. And he's very creative, very intelligent. And there's an amount of gyan, of understanding his position in relation to the source, Krishna. He is a tiny spark. Krishna is the big fire. My Lord, just see my uncivilized Anaryam. He's not behaving like Anaryan, like in Bhagavad Gita, right? Anarya Jushtam Ashvargyam Krishna says to Arjuna, how has this non-Aryan behavior come upon you? Just see my uncivilized impudence to or I tried to extend my illusory potency, mayam vitatye, to cover you, the unlimited and primeval super soul, who bewilder even the masters of illusion, mayi, mayanim. What am I compared to you? I am just like a small spark in the presence of a great fire. So, a great fire, agnau, or fire. And he's indicating he's just a small spark in relation to agnau, small spark compared to a big fire. Here's a photograph of a match being struck on a striker, and there's all these little things going this way, that way, the other way. We don't. The illumination is not simply one of those; it's the fire, and they're from the fire. So the living entities are like that. They're small sparks compared to the big fire. And who are we in comparison to the source of everything? That's the first. This is the beginning of his apology section. Another nice painting. Brahma is depicted here with his swan carrier, although the swan looks pretty small. I don't know how that little swan is going to carry Brahma. Text 10. Therefore, O infallible Lord, kindly excuse my offense. Kshama is mercy. The merciful nature of someone towards another person is kshama. Kindly excuse my offenses. I've taken birth in the mode of passion, and am therefore simply foolish, presuming myself a controller, independent of your lordship. My eyes are blinded by the darkness of ignorance, which causes me to think of myself as the unborn creator of the universe. But please consider that I am your servant. I have your Natavan. You are my Lord and Master. And Anukampyo Mayi. I'm worthy of your compassion. We spent some time discussing this word anukampa. Here we discussed yesterday. Krishna uses the word in the Chaturashloki verses of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, unto those who are constantly engaged in serving me, out of my mercy, I give them the knowledge by which they can come to me. Anukampa. It's not a business deal, it's just a loving exchange. Those who approach me with love, I extend my love. Those who want to be inimical to me, then I extend something that makes them think I'm inimical to them, but I'm not inimical to them. So it's anukampa. Or it's also used when Prahlad Maharaj sees Lord Nrsingadev and he's stunned. He wants to offer prayers, but he's just a little boy. Doesn't have any schooling, doesn't know how to offer proper prayers. He wants to, and the Lord knows that, so he touches him on the head. And when he touches him on the head, he's able to recite beautiful prayers. And Prahlad says, this mercy that you just showed to me, even no other devotee has ever had this. Even Lakshmi herself had never had that kind of mercy from you, the anukampa. It's a strong word. So Brahma is appealing to Krishna, I'm your servant, therefore I'm worthy of your compassion. He's not making little of his wrongdoing. He's explaining the source of it, passionate ignorance. And in his, this is the 10th canto. We'll go back to the second canto. In the second canto, 9th chapter, there's a nice description of Brahma being born on the lotus flower coming from the Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and when he appears, there's nothing. It's darkness in all directions. No flashlights, moon, darkness in all directions. Several things happened. He understands by hearing tapa, he's supposed to engage in tapasya, austerity. For 1,000 celestial years, he engages in austerity. But there's nothing. It's not like he has to fast because there's nothing to eat. Nothing. But he has Gopal mantra by the Diksha process, and he's chanting his mantra. Lord Vishnu is pleased by his devotion and sea of darkness in all directions. And Brahma is startled, and he comes before the Supreme Lord. They have some exchange. The beautiful description of what he sees, including all these different potencies that Brahma saw in the 10th canto, says, please accept some benediction from me. So he asks for more than one, but the first one he asks for is, please protect me from the false ego of thinking that I'm the builder of this universe. And our service isn't building a universe. Our service is whatever it is. Whatever it is. Our service is something. Everyone has some service to do. And there's certainly ourselves as the doer and the creator of the results of the service we do. It's very common. It's false ego. Brahma requested protection. He didn't ask, please don't make me do this job. He's just asking for protection. Now in this verse he's saying, I blew it. I was presuming myself a controller independent of your lordship in the course of building the universe. It's like my universe. Proprietorship of the fruits of your work. Very common. And then if you're the proprietor of the fruits of your work, you're meant to be the enjoyer of the fruits of your work. So here comes your paycheck, and now how am I going to enjoy? It's just standard stuff for material existence. So I fell into that trap by ignorance, and therefore I thought of myself as an independent controller or enjoyer, and you've been very kind. You've taken that away. Now, in the course of my thinking like that, I made some mistake. I'm your servant. Please excuse my mistake. And out of your compassion. You're not asking for a light sentence exactly. He's just asking to be excused. If you still want to punish me, because that was verse number 8. If there's some reaction that's coming to me, I'll accept it. I'll take the reaction, but please excuse me for the wrongdoing. Acting for forgiveness it's a mode of goodness mood in any culture of the world, certainly any religious culture of the world, seeking forgiveness or extending forgiveness to wrongdoers, even if you're not asked. But if you ask, it doesn't mean if you ask for forgiveness, you won't have to be responsible for your wrongs. You're just, the heart of the other person is not holding on to the wrong. It's an appeal. He's making that particular appeal. Here's the next verse. When am I, a small creature measuring 7 spans of my own hand? I am enclosed in a pot-like universe composed of material nature, the total material energy, false ego, ether, air, water, and earth. And what is your glory? Unlimited universes pass through the pores of your body, past openings of a screened window. Now this is a previous age, and it sounds like they had screened windows. They had windows, but they had window screens. It's not like a new invention. Just a small point. But he's enclosed in this one pot-like universe, but the pot-like universes all are streaming from unlimited pores of the body of Mahavishnu. We've probably all seen in the morning sun, there's the morning sun coming through the window, and you can easily see this is the window is closed, but even if there's a screen or you can see little dust particles kind of dancing in the sunlight. So those little particles of dust dancing in the sunlight, he's likening that to the universes that come from the pores of the body of Mahavishnu. Because in the process of creation, which Brahma is part of, even before there's Garbhodakshayi Vishnu entering into each universe, and he comes from Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, there's the shell of the universe, which comes from the body of Mahavishnu. Now there's lots of details. It's mind-boggling, the details. So we won't do any mind-boggling right now, but it's fascinating. And it all makes sense. It's not like you can see it, that kind of sense, but the sequence of from subtle. I'll say a couple things. From Mahavishnu, these golden seeds, there's a Sanskrit term, but the golden seeds, they're as spiritual as he is because they're coming from his body. And they're golden in color, and they're glowing. And as they expand from his exhalations from the pores of his body, not only from his mouth or from his nose, but his whole body is emanating these golden seeds. The golden seeds come in contact with the material elements. And the material elements cling to or conglomerate around the seeds, forming the coverings of the universe. Because each universe is hollow inside, and it has 7 layers of covering. So those coverings are clinging to the seeds of the universe. And then there's a detail that's found in Brahma Samhita, but it's also found in the Bhagavatam 2nd and 3rd cantos. From the body of Mahavishnu, the 3 principal deities, Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh, expand. But remember, there isn't a universe yet. There's just a shell. There's no life inside, because Brahma builds what's inside. So it's in the language of Bhakti Siddhanta, they're prototype. You know what prototype means? Supposing you're an inventor and you want to patent something. So you make one, you give it to the patent office, and it's called the prototype. And then once they give the patent, then you can make copies of the prototype. But it's the original from which copies are made. That's the prototype. So Mahavishnu expands prototypes. From his left limb, Vishnu, it's Kshirodakshayi Vishnu. From his right limb, it's Brahma. And the prototype is given an adjective, Hiranyagarbha. Hiranya means gold. Garbha, or seed, womb, Garbha. Hiranyagarbha, Brahma. And not the Lord Shiva that appears from the brow of Brahma, but Shambhu appears from the brow of Mahavishnu. He's the prototype. It really makes sense. I mean, we're not there to watch all this happen, but Brahma Samhita is describing what happens. And then they do their thing, and the universe starts to unfold in various ways. It's all very scientific, and it happens again and again in cycles, again and again. After cosmic annihilation, there's resting, and then it happens again. And Brahma just plays his part. He's like a little speck. So who am I? I'm in this pot-like universe, and from you come so many universes. From the pores of your body. Now he's looking at a 4-year-old boy. You saw the size compared to him. He's a little boy, 4-year-old boy. And Brahma's the oldest person in the universe. And he's saying, from you come so many universes. Oh, Krishna responds, Brahma, what are you saying? Consider what you're saying. And Brahma knows. He's convinced. We'll hear. Oh, Lord Hokshaja. This is the last verse for this morning session. Does a mother take offense when the child within her womb kicks with his legs? And is there anything in existence, whether designated by various philosophers as real or as unreal, that is actually outside of your abdomen? Cool, huh? Now, mothers don't get angry at the child that's within their womb when they kick. So I'm like a little child. And within your abdomen, now he's looking at a 4-year-old boy, but he's not just seeing a 4-year-old boy, he's seeing you're the source of everything. And from you comes Mahavishnu, and within the body of Mahavishnu, it's all living entities. And you expand yourself as the Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and 1 universe worth of living entities are within your abdomen. And I've come from your abdomen. So if I kick a little bit, you should accuse me. Don't take offense. Very clever. Now, built into what he's saying, you have to unpack it and unpack it and unpack it. But he's understanding the process of creation. He's part of it. He knows enough how to build the universe. So he understands the background behind building a universe. He's born from the body of Garbhodakshay Vishnu, which he didn't understand when he was first born. His question was, where'd I come from? And then that realization was given, along with everything else he needed in order to build the universe. So the painting is showing on the upper right, there's Brahma descending on the back of his swan carrier. Looks like a turkey, an albino turkey. Anyway, then he's falling at Krishna's feet, and then he's standing, paying his obeisances before Krishna, offering these prayers. So next time, I think it's going to be tomorrow midday, we'll go on to the next set of prayers. There's another topic for this evening. Something about Lord Jagannath for this evening. A small point. He is addressing Krishna. Before he was addressing Krishna as Ajita, here he's addressing Krishna as Adhoksaja. Aksaja means eyes, and Adhoksaja means he who's beyond sense perception. You cannot see him. Although he's seen, and which he's already acknowledged as being a very special mercy. As Krishna says in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, after Arjuna requests to show his universal form, he shows his universal form. Arjun says, "Yikes, can you remove that form? It's too much. It's overwhelming." So form shows his forearm form and then shows his two-arm form and then says, and he's recognizing this is very special. And not only he's seen, he's understood that this is the origin of everything. So, Adhoksaja, the Lord who's beyond the senses to be perceived, is that same Lord who, according to the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we're meant to serve. We're meant to serve with our senses the one who's beyond the senses. That takes faith, right? Just to exist. Incidental faith, then although one may not be able to see with these eyes the master who these senses are serving, there's faith and there's some reciprocation from that place, that person. And then one can feel that connection. It's called bhakti. Bhakti connection, serving the Supreme. And there may or may not be some physical manifestation to confirm, yes, there's reciprocation. Although sometimes there's physical reciprocation. Miracles happen and one goes, wow. It happens. It doesn't have to be like a super miracle. It can just be some little thing. Maybe some of you have been receiving some messages from devotees in the Ukraine. And everyone that I've heard, some were YouTube, some were written letters, they felt like the mercy of Krishna through, those that survived. I don't know of any, one of the letters I just read is they don't know of anyone, any devotee in the Ukraine that perished. Lots of people perished. But the devotees have all been protected, and they describe this situation, the other situation, the next situation, of how they survived. And they felt Krishna's protection. One of the things, did you get a copy of that, the GBC SPT? You got that one today? Forward it to the others. It's really nice because this apparently it's a girl. The day before the first explosion happened, she had a dream. Prabhupada was in the dream. And, she describes what happened in the dream with Prabhupada. And it was dark, and this and that and the other thing, and Prabhupada was leading them to safety. She didn't understand the dream that night. The next day, she could understand the dream. Prabhupada was with her and with the devotees, and they went from this place to that place to the other place, and risking their lives at every moment, and who knows what's going to happen, and they were all safe. And the kindness that the devotees in each place they went to extended to them, I mean, it's for sure. It has brought the people of Ukraine together in very heartfelt reciprocations with one another. Danger has a way of bringing that out. But the main theme that I recall hearing from these experiences is feeling protected. Practically a miracle after another miracle after another miracle. They went all the way from the eastern side of the Ukraine to this place, to that place, to the other place, through Poland, and they ended up in Denmark. Just by miracle after miracle after miracle of Krishna stepping in and helping. That doesn't mean, anyway, it doesn't mean if something bad happens to one of those devotees that Krishna was punishing them or he was negligent or something like that. But they're getting very clear realization of Krishna's protection, and it's strengthening their conviction that their life is meant for serving him. So in this case, it's not a war; it's an offense, and Brahma's conviction in the necessity of bhakti is very strong. Although the person who he's serving, he's addressing as a Dhoksajo. So same for us. Let's see if there's some discussion. $12:20. Is this being broadcast somewhere, or you're just making a video? Okay. Fine. Any thoughts, comments?
Krishna Maharaj, just that you mentioned about Ukraine, I was just thinking how fortunate we are to live in a safe place like here where we don't have problems for basic necessities like food, shelter, water. And I think this is also a reminder for outside people that utilize what you have. I mean, be thankful for what you have.
We have a privileged life.
Yeah, very privileged.
And don't take it for granted. Anyway. Yeah. The program. Same. Count your blessings and then use them wisely. Use them towards the mission of life. When it looks like there's less blessings, you value your blessings more. You value that there's some water or there's something to eat. Anyway, and there's shelter. 18 people crunched into a basement. There's bombs are exploding all around. Let's get out of here. And anyway, they were protected. Anything else? Yeah.
Pranam Maharaj. In one of the Bhakti Vriksh, there was a discussion, and I'm just a very fresh starter into Bhakti Yoga, so
Okay.
Please forgive my ignorance on that side. The discussion was whether Krishna knows his powers or not. Whether
absolutely. He doesn't become omniscient. He is omniscient. Sometimes he conducts activities as if he doesn't know. And he becomes surprised. And that's part of rasa. It's a mood of happiness that he enjoys. He's omniscient.
Yes, and I think that few devotees were mentioning some of the incidents where Krishna was surprised, and they were saying maybe the Krishna even doesn't know his powers.
Krishna knows. He's enjoying that.
Yeah. So,
It's according to our acharyas, it's an arrangement of his yogamaya potency, which is under his control. But his yogamaya potency is arranging for a happiness, an ecstasy, a transcendental emotion that nourishes his happiness. And it can sometimes look like something that's not nice. It can look like sorrow, but that's an ecstasy. And sometimes he cries, and that's an ecstasy. When Radharani is manifesting her loving mood of anger, and he petitions, anyway, it's in Brihat Bhagavatamrita. One morning in Dwaraka, Krishna couldn't get out of bed because all night long he'd been in anxiety. about the resident of Vrindavan and his feelings of love for the resident of Vrindavan. So we're just lying in bed in great grief and anxiety. It's an ecstasy. Not he's unknowing, but there's a pastime that enables him to experience that emotion, that kind of love, in exchange with his devotees.
Yeah, with my very limited knowledge, I thought that is the right way, because I thought if Krishna doesn't know all his powers, then it would create a chaos, and
He's like one of us.
everything is in such a order that he's Supreme Lord and he knows everything. He's just
Yes.
making you feel by his pastimes.
Well, he's feeling also. He's feeling a certain something. And that's part of him. He's in the language of the Vedas, raso saha. Saha is a pronoun. He or it, saha, is rasa and vice. So within him is everything. And he's just experiencing some different flavors of everything. It's not stagnant. Very, very dynamic. And everything. So he's experiencing, not only he's enabling others to experience.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Someone else had their hand up. Who was it? You had your hand up, Michael? It's okay. Okay. Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you so much, Maharaj, for all the very nice, deep explanations. It really brings up so many wonderful thoughts, and
Speak clearly.
thank you so much.
I heard the first part, but now speak clearly.
I really appreciate the pre-story too. It was so helpful to hear everything. Thank you so much.
Okay.